Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with the first story from back in the 70s when OP's mom was a waitress. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Waitress complies with manager's unsanitary decision. This actually is my mother-in-law's story. It occurred in the late 1970s. She was working as a waitress in a small restaurant. One day, during the lunch rush, she drops a plate of food on the floor of the kitchen. She asks the cook to prep a replacement when the manager comes over, picks up the food off the floor, puts it back on the plate, and tells her there's nothing wrong with it and to go serve it. She protests, but it's been on the floor. The manager tells her, "Go serve this plate or you're fired." So, she takes the order out to the table and sets it down in front of the customer and announces loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "Here's your food. But I wouldn't eat it if I were you. I dropped it on the floor, but my manager told me to serve it to you anyway." She turns around, toodles back over to her manager, smiles at him, and says, "I quit." As she turns around to leave, the entire dining room is pushing back from their tables and leaving without paying. And our second story. Shady businessman gets his due. Many years ago, I was a broke kid just out of high school who had no plans for college at the time because I was sick of school. I tried to apply anywhere I could, but almost no one was taking applications. I stumbled across an ad for a job in a construction-related trade, and at this point, I was ready to do anything to stop being a burden because I was living with my friend. There was no real interview. I was new, so I was going to start out making minimum wage, and they would be able to give me cash, which was great since I didn't have money to open a bank account. I thought that this probably meant it was under the table, like the other couple of crappy commission jobs I'd tried since I got there, but figured, screw it, at least I've got a job that's paying hourly. The first day I show up to the shop at the scheduled time, and they ask me if I had my own tools. Of course not, I don't have any money. I had to borrow from my friend to get gas just to get to work the first 2 weeks. This was no problem, as they handed me a stack of new tools for my first day. At the end of the second week, I confusingly received a check for my first week of work, and it was a lot less than expected. There wasn't an earning statement, so I figured maybe I was wrong and they had taken out taxes. I was just happy to be able to pay for my own gas and take my friend to dinner as an underwhelming thank you. I asked them about the cash, and they promptly took the check back and handed me the amount. The next week, my check was a lot closer to the amount of money I expected, so they obviously hadn't taxed it. I was a bit confused, so I asked why my first check was short. That's when I found out I had bought all my supplies from them, and the money was taken out of my pay. I'd already seen one guy fired for questioning them on a job site, so I wasn't about to press the issue or ask more questions. Now, I'm not a stupid guy, and if I had more sense at the time, I would have run far away. I should have known better, but again, I was young, uneducated, had a job in a time that it was hard for me to find one, and was finally being able to pay my own way. Then I was stuck. I was working to make money to eat, have a roof over my head, and buy the gas to get to work and earn another check. I tried to look for another job when I could, but unfortunately, when you're working a long distance from your home, from early morning to late evening, including drive time, and making just enough money to get by, you can't just take off work to go for an interview. This was my new life. Days became weeks, weeks became months, months became a year. Over time, I came to find out who all my coworkers were, the meth heads, the alcoholics, the guys fresh out of prison, and a number of illegals. Some were a-holes, the alcoholics. Some were really nice, the illegals. Some were just there to make it another week. I laughed right along with their stories of the free vacations to see their families when they'd be deported before hopping the border and coming back to work a couple months later. The entire point is, this guy loved employing the type of people who wouldn't fight back about their crappy pay and who probably weren't going to file taxes. I had less than $100 saved at the end of the year and was about to learn what I'd really gotten myself into. In February, I was handed a tax statement, a 1099. I didn't think anything of it until April came around and I knew I had to do my taxes. I filled in the forms, used the tax tables, calculated things up, and holy crap. In case you didn't know, when you get a 1099, you're working as a contractor or Basically, you own your own business. Since you own the business, you not only need to pay your own taxes, but also all of the employer portion of the taxes on everything you made. I owed a couple $1,000s with almost nothing to my name. I just gave up. I already expected I was going to be a tax evader by taking under-the-table pay. There was no way I could make the payments for what I owed, so I just didn't file taxes. It wasn't long before I figured out that most of the other contractors were in the same boat, some of them for many, many years without filing taxes. 1 year became 2, 2 became 3. I hated that job and the guy we worked for. We were being worked into the ground for very little pay while the owner made money hand over fist. He would stretch the cheapest materials as far as possible. He made us buy our supplies and safety gear from him because if you didn't have it on hand, you were fired, and generally found any reason he could to keep money out of our checks. Overtime didn't exist because they considered us contractors. We had to work until they said we were done based on the expectations they made on the supervisors. Because most of the guys were undereducated, he knew they weren't going to say anything to anyone. By the time you account for all the tax burdens he transferred to us, we were probably making around $4 an hour, with supervisors making around $6 an hour. The third year in, I received a small amount of money unexpectedly. The job market was a lot better, so I applied for as many jobs as I could and lined all the interviews up for the next week. The money was enough for me to take that week off, and I lucked out with a new job. I quit immediately and started making a reasonable pay. When the end of year rolled around, I had a W-2 and another 1099. I knew I had a problem. I started combing through IRS documents to figure out how deep I was. Backfile, pay penalties, and interest. The IRS would keep all my taxes, and I would still owe about $5,000, which I could make payments on. At my current pay and what I could afford, I would probably be making payments for the next 5 years with the interest. One day, as I was agonizing over the approaching deadline to file, one of the IRS documents sparked an important question. What made me a contractor? Turns out, according to the IRS definition, I probably wasn't, since I was told when I had to work, when I could leave, where to work, what to do. All work was supervised and training was provided. All these things added up to looking like it would be determined I was an employee. Armed with this information, I filed my tax forms and immediately started a dispute process with the IRS. I made sure to be clear that all of the employees were in the same situation. At best, I hoped I would just be a little less effed on how much I owed. Things worked out better than I had planned. The owner tried to dispute it, but my story was too compelling. The IRS found in my favor, and I was able to amend all my previous returns. I still owed the penalties and some taxes for not having filed on time, but it was nothing compared to my old employer. He and his business were audited, then slammed with a F-ton of fines and penalties. His name and business were ruined. The last I heard, he was doing small odd jobs as an independent contractor. All I could think was, enjoy the taxes, you jackwagon. And our last story. Call me a pervert? Yeah, well, that's going to cost you a job. There was a woman, let's call her Stacy. Stacy owned a bar. Stacy has a great personality, knows how to make drinks, and successfully ran a bar. Stacy is a young, attractive, ambitious woman. Unfortunately for Stacy, after she built up her bar, her husband emptied her bank account and ran off with all the money. This devastated Stacy, and she didn't have the funds or willpower to move forward. So she sold the bar and started to live off the sale of the bar. Stacy improved herself a lot. Stacy and I were friends, not best friends, but we knew each other. I knew Stacy was starting to run out of money because she'd mentioned this several times in Facebook postings. Well, I'm friends with quite a few business people, and over the course of the last several months, I recommended businesses for her to go apply for a job. After the first recommendation, she thanked me, applied, and got the job. She quit that job. That's fine. I recommended her for another job sometime later. She thanked me. Things didn't work out with that interview/hiring. Life, right? 2 weeks ago, a bar starts looking for a manager. Their offer is really competitive, high salary, profit sharing, etc. I tell Stacy about this bar, and this is copied and pasted. Only edited parts are the names. Club A is looking to hire a bar manager. They want experience, offer a good salary, plus profit sharing. Go to their Facebook page to look for more info. That's it. Our messages for the past several months only had to do about jobs. All very short, all very to the point. 3 days later, she responds, "I'm sick and tired of you stalking me. I'm not into you. Stop messaging me." I qualified this that she meant this for me and not someone else. She confirms it's about me stalking her and how much of a pervert I am, apparently. I stop responding. Did I mention I'm good friends with bar owner from Club A? I asked him if Stacy had applied, and he said that she had, and it's between her and another guy. I said, "Let me show you our Facebook conversation, and maybe that will help you make up your mind." So I hand him my phone. After reading it, he says, "I don't think I want a woman like this working for me." She did not get the job. FYI, Stacy has a boyfriend, has had the same boyfriend for quite some time. He's a good dude. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.